Hi, I'm Shayna, and this is my journey to motherhood. Have you ever felt like you're on a path that is so broken, you feel like all hope is lost, that the rain has been pouring and there's no sign of the sun? God has put it on my heart to start this page to share my personal testimony of struggling with infertility and how I found hope on my journey to motherhood. I hope that it will help other women find faith in the middle of their brokenness. When you're on the right path, no matter how broken it may feel, you will see the promises God has had promised for you fulfilled. Even when you feel like your prayers aren't being heard or answered, God is working in divine purpose to lead you to where you're meant to be. Throughout this testimony, I'm going to reference lyrics from the song God Bless the Broken Road by Rascal Flatts and explain why this song resonates with me and why I chose it. God bless the broken road. Every long-lost dream led me to where you are. Others who broke my heart, they were like northern stars, pointing me on my way into your loving arms. This much I know is true, that God blessed the broken road that led me straight to you. My husband and I met when we were 18. Both of us had lived very broken lives. We grew up in poverty. We were both from broken homes and had divorced parents. We witnessed abuse, addiction, and we had both had made our fair share of mistakes before we had even met. We both had very unhealthy high school relationships. Our journeys were so similar that we were drawn to each other. We both jumped in very quickly and got engaged very young. Looking back now, we were still babies, but we had been forced to grow up way earlier than we should have because of the circumstances we faced in adolescence. I had always struggled with irregular menstrual cycles my whole life, and up until this point had been told there was nothing to worry about. It was normal for teens involved heavily in sports to miss their menstrual cycles. After school, my athletics had slowed down drastically, and yet my cycles were getting farther and farther apart. I started doing my own research and trying to figure out what was going on. I'd found something called polycystic ovarian syndrome, PCOS. I had printed out some information and highlighted 90% of the symptoms. I made an appointment with my doctor and took my proof with me. The doctor agreed and simply told me, "You're right. It looks like you do have PCOS," and told me I would probably never have kids. There was no testing, there was nothing else, just a dismissal of my future motherhood. I was 20, and I had just gotten engaged, and of course, my then fiance and I had discussed it and decided that we were going to move forward with the wedding. We loved each other, and that was all that was really important to us. And at that time, we truly didn't realize the gravity of this decision and how it would affect our marriage. God Bless the Broken Road by Rascal Flatts was a song we chose as our first stand. I felt like our brokenness had brought us together, not realizing how much the song would truly resonate with our whole life. I sat on a narrow way many years ago, hoping I would find true love along the broken road. But I got lost a time or two, wiped my brow, and kept pushing through. I couldn't see how every sign pointed straight to you. Matthew 7:13-14. Enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow is the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. I feel like those lyrics right at the beginning of the song truly tell you that when you go down this narrow, broken path, that you're going to find your way to love, and you're going to find your way to your purpose, and you're going to find your way to God. After the wedding, we started immediately getting the dreaded question, when are you going to have kids? We hadn't shared with our family what I was told before the wedding. No one knew that we were going to have a hard time conceiving, if at all. We never tried to prevent pregnancy, yet it never came. At first, we weren't really trying, but as the years passed, the desire to become parents was overwhelming. We had tried to see a doctor again and again, received very little help. I didn't really know how to advocate for myself and what I needed to ask for. In 2012, my grandma passed away. She was my best friend. This was 3 years after we were married, and it shook my whole life. I needed somewhere to put all my energy, all my focus, and all my attention. So we started really diving in and trying to figure out a way to become parents. We did fundraising to help with fertility treatments because they're thousands of dollars and most insurance plans won't help you pay for it. We sought out a great doctor and started down this path. We went to the doctors with so much hope. We started out with testing and set out on the first step of treatment. And at this point is when we found out that not only did I have a medical diagnosis that was hindering us, my spouse also had fertility issues that we were unaware of. At this time, our marriage was already rocky. We had already been struggling and we had already been working on things. But we both still wanted this more than anything. And we're trying to make it work on our own. We hadn't built our marriage or relationship on God. Our foundation wasn't strong, and when the storm came, our house was starting to wash away. Matthew 7:24-27. Therefore, whoever heareth the saying of mine and doeth them, I will liken him unto a wise man, which built his house upon a rock. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat upon that house, and it fell not, for it was founded upon a rock. And everyone that heareth these sayings of mine and doeth them not shall be likened unto a foolish man, which built his house upon the sand. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat upon that house, and it fell, and great was the fall of it. Things only got worse in our marriage as our attempts to become parents became futile. We had attempted 6 IUIs, inseminations, all failed. The doctors were emphasizing that medications they were giving me was working, but combined with my spouse's fertility issues, we had little to no hope on this road, and that we would need to move forward with IVF, in vitro fertilization. And we had already ran out of money to put towards this journey. And as much as it pained us, we had decided to no longer pursue this medical path. And now we both had fertility issues and both felt like we were failing our partners. It was tearing us apart. There was so much turmoil in our marriage. We had also tried to move forward with adoption through the foster system. We had taken the courses twice. And also now had failed adoptions. And we were at the end of our road. We couldn't keep on this path. Our marriage was so full of jagged and broken rocks, briars and thorns, that it felt like there was no hope. We separated. I had gotten the paperwork to file for divorce, and there were biblical grounds for divorce, but I just couldn't move forward with it. I knew in my heart that it wasn't what should happen, and I kept hearing the Lord tell me divorce was not in my plan for you. We spent a year separated and I took this time to truly find my way back to God. I had always believed, but had always been lukewarm. I think many of us forget or maybe misconceive that believing in God is an easy path, that you will not face heartache or trials. And I think that it sometimes is farther from the truth. Romans 5:3-5. Blessed is the man who remains steadfast under trial, for when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life, for which God has promised to those who love him. Loving God is not always the easy road, and it's not always the easy path. During our separation, I found a local church that felt like home. I started inviting my spouse, and to my surprise, he started coming with me. For the first time, I feel like our goals and our prayers were aligned. We were starting to see a recovery in our marriage. Though we were still living separately, we were finding our way back to each other and God. God bless the broken road. Think about the years I spent just passing through. I'd like to have the time I lost and give it back to you. But you just smile and take my hand. You've been there, you understand. It's all part of a grander plan that is coming true. More than anything, I would have liked to go back and, get those failed parts of our marriage back, put our foundation on God and put Him first in our marriage, and, see what would have happened sooner. But that is not the plan that God had for us. John 13:7, Jesus replied, "You do not realize now what I'm doing, but later you will understand." Everything happens for a reason. Trust in God's timing and in God's plan, and everything will work for the good. Although we still had heartache during the season of separation, we had given it to God. We were no longer going to pursue the road of parenthood. We had both endured too much, and our hearts couldn't handle it anymore. We had booked a vacation and were ready to move forward, just living our best lives together, if that is what God's plan was for us. I had been seeing a new doctor. I had cut out gluten and dairy from my diet, which was helping to naturally regulate my cycle. And she had prescribed me a medication to help with my menstrual cycles. So if I hadn't had one in too long, typically about 90 days, I would take a medication for 10 days, and it would sort of trick my body into thinking it needed to menstruate due to the lack of progesterone. Downside to this was I had to take a pregnancy test to ensure that it was negative before starting the medication and introducing this synthetic hormone into my body. I hated this part. I hated seeing the negative test. It was gut-wrenching every time. My husband was still staying with his family, but I only lived a few blocks away, and he would frequently visit as we were trying to navigate back to us. We had some friends that were coming to visit us from out of town, and they met us where my husband was staying. I hung out for a little while, but I just wasn't feeling well, so I decided to go home. My symptoms were very similar to pre-menstruation. It had been about 80 days since my last cycle. I figured I'm just going to take the test and start the medication early to see if that would help with the fatigue and help me to feel better. I took the test, and it was positive. I was in utter shock. There's no way this was happening. I took another test. Positive. I was in disbelief. I sat there in silence and alone in my apartment by myself, just trying to gather my thoughts and process this. I couldn't believe it. There's no way, after all this time, that it was finally coming true. I called my husband and asked him to come over. That I had a little late birthday gift for him. I had bought a little onesie a few years prior that said "best gift ever" when we were doing our fertility treatments, because if we conceived at that time, then I was planning to announce it with that little onesie around Christmas. I wrapped it up and I gave it to him. He was in just as much disbelief as I was. I told him I wanted to wait to confirm with the doctors before sharing the news, but he was too giddy. So we waited till the morning, we took another test, and again, it was positive. We shared our news with our immediate family, and everyone was elated. Everyone had prayed for this little one. And oh yeah, that vacation that I had booked for the cruise, that was set sail to the exact week of my due date, it was canceled without question. Our gift was far greater than any vacation could have ever been. It was now 2017, 8 years since we were married and 11 years since we had met. Our journey was long and treacherous, and we almost gave up so many times. We had been through failed fertility treatments and adoptions. Our marriage almost ended in divorce. But we trusted in our love for each other and God. After my daughter was born at the end of 2017, we had made the decision not to move forward with any contraception. It had taken us so long to have our first child, we didn't want to hinder any chances at having another. I was fearful of secondary infertility. February of 2018, I found out I was pregnant again. The Lord had heard my prayers and my cries and doubled my blessings. My kids are 11 months apart. They're now 5 and 6 and have such a love for Jesus that it's contagious. Through them, my love for God has become even stronger, and now I can see how every heartache has led me to where I am today. I'm telling you this story in hopes that it resonates with you. If you're at a place where you feel like your road is too broken and you feel like you're turning back and giving up, please don't. If you feel comfortable, tell me about your struggle in the comments. God has a plan for your life. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. During our journey, not only did I turn to faith, but I also searched for a community where I felt understood. No one in my family understood what pain I was going through. No one understood why it was difficult for me to hold a baby or go to baby showers. I found a community of women going through the same struggle as me. And I want to build a community that supports and prays for other women facing this battle. However, one thing that was hard for me is after I conceived was finding my community afterwards. I no longer felt welcomed in the community I had found comfort in because I was no longer on that path. I came out the other side of victor. I had gained freedom in God and been blessed. If you feel comfortable and you have a testimony to tell, put it in the comments. Give encouragement to other women that they're not alone. I want to build a community that embraces and celebrates women that have overcome this battle, that the women that made it to the other side can join forces and pray for the ladies that are searching for love and hope. Again, if you need prayer, tell us in the comments. I will be happy to pray for you, and I'm sure other women would be too. If you want to join this community that will empower women battling infertility while celebrating those who have conquered it, like and subscribe to join. God bless the broken road. This much I know is true, that God blessed the broken road that led me to my husband, to my children, and to God. There is victorious freedom in God.